Man, I can talk about this all day. Hey guys, welcome back. Today is day 7 of VEDA, and it looks like I'm using my hands a lot. It's because I'm not holding the selfie stick this time. Anyways, so today I figured I would talk about languages and struggles with learning a new language because it's finals week and I have a French class, and the very last assignment I have to do involves listening to something in French, whether it be like a TV show or like a radio segment or the news or whatever, and then like writing what I've learned, like new words and things I didn't understand and what happened in the movie or news segment. So I just thought, let's talk about some struggles with learning a second language, particularly my personal struggle when learning a new language. For me right now, learning French, my biggest struggle is like listening comprehension. And I would say more so French than anything, because even when I was learning Spanish, like when I lived in LA, I don't know, maybe it's a little different because I had a lot of Spanish speaking friends, so I was very used to it. But I'm pretty good at the reading, as long as I have a dictionary, and even in many cases I'm far enough into the language that if I don't have a dictionary and I just keep reading, I kind of have a good idea of what the word might mean, or like I'll still understand the overall gist of what I'm reading. I'm pretty okay at writing, mostly just because I enjoy writing in English too. Outside of grammar, most of writing in English and writing in French is about the same as far as like composing a story or composing like a sequence of events. For the most part, outside of grammar, because that's a whole other story, outside of grammar, it's like more or less the same with a few exceptions. So like that part, easy peasy. But when it comes to like listening to people talk, and even worse, responding to people, oh my goodness, it is so, for me it is so extremely complicated. And I know exactly why it's so hard for me. It's because I don't practice. But like there's really no excuse, but it's hard to practice. I'll just put it that way, especially here in Montreal, because it's so bilingual. What will often happen, again, I'm not making excuses, just stating facts here, but what will often happen is I will, like let's say I go to a store, I will talk in French, and if I stumble, because it's a bilingual city, most people will try and help me by speaking in English because they think, oh, this person doesn't speak French fluently, let me help them out. Now there are exceptions. Some people will just like, don't care if you're struggling, they will keep talking to you in French because they're very like, you should know French, which is fine, like I'm fine with that. But most of the experiences I've had, if I stumble too much, people will start speaking to me in English, or they'll just stop talking to me at all because they don't know English and they figure we're not going to be able to communicate much. For that reason, and for my own reasons of not taking the time to practice with French speakers, it's not like I don't have French speaking friends, it's just really hard for me to talk, and it's also particularly difficult for me to grasp things that are being said. That's like my biggest thing right now. Of course, I'm working on it. I have no choice but to work on it. I want to work on it, especially because I'd like to learn other languages, but I don't want to move on until I learn this one pretty well. I know like everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. In my classes, for example, most people I feel like speak very, very well in French, and it's usually because they've grown up in a bilingual setting, like they're from the area, so they know how to talk well, but like maybe their grammar is really bad. And so I still end up being in the same class with some of these people who can like talk so fast, and I'm just like, how are you doing that? But it's because they grew up speaking the language, even if it's not like their first language technically. Tell me about yourself. Are you learning a second language? Like, what is the hardest part for you? Is it reading? Is it writing? Is it talking? Is it listening? I'd love to know, because different struggles for different people. That's all for today's video. Please subscribe to my channel so you can continue following my vlogging shenanigans. It's my first time vlogging. I mean, the past 7 days is my first time, but like in general, it's like my first round of vlogging. I'd love to have you hop on board on this journey, and I will see you guys tomorrow.